welcome to my next video, which is about the much maligned Superman 4, Quest for Peace. So, as you can tell by the t-shirt that I'm wearing, I'm a huge Superman fan, and I think this film gets a bit of a bad rep. So I wanted to do this video to talk about some of the reasons I think Superman 4 is not quite as bad as you think.
Lex, you're not gonna believe this, but it's Superman!
For the film itself, though, there were a number of factors and elements that probably had a huge bearing on the way the film turned out. Canon and Golden Globus, who were the film's producers and distributors, were in the process of trying to stave off bankruptcy. And as part of that, they took a large chunk of the money that was designated for Superman 4 and they gave it to He-Man and Master of the Universe. They thought that was going to be the big film that would save their studio, which unfortunately didn't. After Superman 4 and He-Man didn't do so well in the theaters, the studio went bust actually, so that wasn't a great ending.
The Daily Planet hasn't made any money in 3 years.
And the name of the game is making money.
And it really had a huge impact on Superman 4 because essentially the special effects budget got cut in half pretty much on the first day. If you look at the film, it's very flawed. The special effects are really not great.
There you go. Bye-bye.
The location scenes are really poor when you compare them to the previous films. A key example is one of the big scenes where Superman goes to the UN and delivers an amazing speech. They really wanted to shoot that in New York, but Canon wouldn't front the money, so they ended up shooting in Milton Keynes, and it doesn't quite have the same feeling and visuals as shooting directly in New York.
Hi, Jeremy. Jimmy? What a scoop! How'd you like to take a walk with me?
Sure, okay.
Jimmy, come on.
Christopher Reeve himself didn't really want to come back and do the fourth one. They had to heavily convince him after the Salkind sold the rights. But one of the things he did do was come back on a couple of conditions. So he used this film to help finance another film that he wanted to do for a long time, Street Smart, which is quite a good film. If you haven't seen it, you should check it out. And also he agreed to do Superman 4 if it was based on his story. So we'll get into the story in a minute, but clearly in Superman 4 they tried so many ways to recapture the magic of the first film. That obviously didn't work, but other than Richard Donner not being available, they tried to get the old crew back together. They had Gene Hackman and Margot Kidder. They had Jackie Cooper as Perry White, Mark McClure as Jimmy Olsen. So they really wanted to try their best to recapture the spirit of the original, but obviously they failed. And there were a few other missteps along the way. I mean, don't even get me started on the original Nuclear Man. If you haven't seen it, check out the YouTube clips of the deleted scenes. They don't have great special effects, sound effects, but that was a very strange attempt. Although those scenes do explain at the end of the film how he knows where to go to find Lacey. So the film, for all its faults, I think has some redeeming qualities to it, and I still enjoy watching it. I did watch it when I was a bit older than a small boy, so I had mixed feelings on seeing it in the cinema. But here, in my view, are some of the redeeming features of Superman 4 that make it not quite as bad as you remember it. So the first one is clearly the portrayal of Clark Kent as Superman by Christopher Reeve. At least in my opinion to date, there hasn't been anyone as good as he has been in that role. He's unparalleled to me. He brings a sense of stature, of gravitas. He is the eternal Boy Scout. He's very humble, and he's really keen to help everyone.
Excuse me, Miss Warfield. I think I speak for all of us when I say that we'll do our best to cooperate.
Thank you.
But a reporter's first allegiance has to be to the truth. The people of this city depend on us, and we can't let them down. Thank you.
So, one of the brilliant scenes I love about the film is the scene in Smallville. I thought that was a wonderful scene, showcasing his roots and the way that he has deference to people from where he grew up.
Mr. Hornsby, that's my final decision, though, about the place. I'm going to hold out for Real Farmer.
You are. And you're just as obstinate as your father was, too.
Well, I'm sorry about that, sir, but that's just the way it is.
Will you be careful when you get back to Metropolis, Clark? It's a long, long way from where you were born.
Yes, sir. I never forget that, sir. Bye.
Another fact, I think, that in terms of Reeve's portrayal, especially in this film, that he didn't have any others, is that you can see in the opening scenes and some of the later scenes that he actually speaks all the languages of Earth. He speaks Russian, he speaks Italian later on. It's really wonderful to see that element of Superman, which we hadn't seen before.
You see, because Superman is seen in every country of the world and every language of the world, it is a kind of an intercultural ambassador, so to speak. And I am very concerned that Superman is not, pardon me, it's not a piece of American propaganda. The thing about truth, justice, and the American way should not be a painful slogan. That's just a kind of a Valentine to, it's sort of a nostalgic thing. But he is, he's a world citizen rather than a piece of American propaganda, so to speak.
Вам здесь будет безопаснее, товарищ. До свидания. Счастливого полета.
So another reason are the two speeches that he gives to the UN. I think to this day, in any incarnation of Superman on screen, those two sum up his character's best. When Reeve delivered those speeches, the first one and the second one, they still give me goosebumps hearing it. The message that he's trying to get across in those speeches is really touching, and the way that he has changed, at least there is some element of that in the first few films. He felt like he was a strange visitor from another planet. But, you know, as part of one of the speeches, he does talk about the fact that it's his world too now. He feels truly a part of Earth, and he doesn't want to see Earth go down the same route that Krypton did.
Madam Secretary, honorable delegates, ladies and gentlemen, for many years now, I've lived among you as a visitor. I've seen the beauty of your many cultures. I felt great joy in your magnificent accomplishments. I've also seen the folly of your wars. As of today, I'm not a visitor anymore, because the Earth is my home too. We can't live in fear, and I can't stand idly by and watch us stumble into the madness of possible nuclear destruction. And so I've come to a decision. I'm going to do what our governments have been unwilling or unable to do. Effective immediately, I'm going to rid our planet of all nuclear weapons. Well, once more, we've survived the threat of war and found a fragile peace. I thought I could give you all the gift of the freedom from war, but I was wrong. It's not mine to give. We're still a young planet. There are galaxies out there, other civilizations for us to meet, to learn from. What a brilliant future we could have. And there will be peace. There will be peace when the people of the world want it so badly that their governments will have no choice but to give it to them. I just wish you could all see the Earth the way that I see it. Because when you really look at it, It's just one world.
Third reason for why I think the film is quite good is the message. Christopher Reeve was involved in the storyline, and people have to remember that at this point in our history, there was a big nuclear arms race going on. A lot of nations were worried about where that was going to go. It was at the forefront of everyone's minds. So he did incorporate that into a Superman film. And I think the message is really great. I mean, what would the world be like if Superman lived in it? If he saw the potential for destruction that we have, would he intervene or not? And that dilemma that he has, I think, is quite well explored in the film.
Maybe while people are laughing and enjoying themselves and watching Lex Luthor do his thing and seeing the special effects and whatever, there may be some sense about, I mean, we're playing out the fantasy of what if there really were this person who could show up and simply end one of the greatest problems of our time, which is the nuclear arms race. And starting with that fantasy makes quite a film, I think.
You got to remember, actually, the first time that he receives a letter asking him to intervene, he says no. He says, no, I'm not going to do anything. And the media blow it all out of proportion. And he actually changes his mind on the back of some of that media pressure and some of that global pressure. I mean, he does say, as I said before, that it's his world too, after all.
And I said we should get Superman to rid the world of nuclear arms because only he could do it. I don't care if everybody thinks I'm a space cadet. Once you've destroyed all the nuclear missiles in the world, they'll see I was right. Superman can make sure we don't blow ourselves up quick and easy. Thanks a lot. I know you'll come through. Your friend Jeremy.
Poor kid. Oh, well, I better get back to work.
I don't know, there's an angle in this.
An angle? He's just a kid.
Oh, yeah, Daddy loves whipping up campaigns. Oh, boy, and the public loves it.
Lacey!
We're gonna make this kid a celebrity. Everybody in the world is gonna be wondering what Superman's reply is.
Another reason that I really enjoyed the film is the interaction between Lex and Lenny. I think Gene Hackman is hilarious as Lex Luthor in a way that doesn't detract from Luthor's plans. I mean, there are elements of cartoonishness about him and what he's trying to accomplish, but I think when he's outsmarting the rest of the world and outsciencing the rest of the world, I think that does show his genius. And then with Lenny...
Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! It's like cold.
Who is clearly the new Otis. Some of the banter, even to this day, makes me laugh. I mean, Luthor talks to him and says things like, "You're the Dutch elm disease of my family tree." And then he asks Lenny, "You know what I can do with a strand of Superman's hair?" And Lenny says, "You can make a toupee that flies."
Do you know what I can do with a single strand of Superman's hair?
You can make a toupee that flies.
And as a kid, in my head, I had an image of a toupee just flying around, being made from Superman's hair. So I really enjoyed the banter between Lenny and Lex. And even Lex with the generals and arms dealers he was working with. He has some quite funny lines with them, tells them if they will need a reference, screams at them they can forget it. And he has some interesting sort of scenes where he's pretending to be a French nobleman and all kinds of funny stuff going on in the background.
What was that?
So I still enjoyed Hackman as Luthor in this film. The double date scene. I mean, what a scene that is. It's one of those scenes where I think it would have worked in any of the three films before it. It's really great to see them try and push the boundaries of how Superman acts in his different personas. You see Clark being absolutely bungling in the film. I mean, he gets caught in one of the luggage trolleys.
All right, let's go chit-chat. If I have to face Superman, so do you.
Lacey? Wait a minute.
Oh, Clark.
Stop.
Lois tries to tell him about the dress that Lacey's wearing, and he says, "Hey, neat dress." And then you see the flip side when Superman arrives, and he's very smooth and suave in his persona.
Clark, she really likes you, so notice the dress.
My American Express card.
Dress.
Oh, hey, neat dress. Well, thanks. Be right back.
Hey, what's that? Now there's a different kind of entrance.
Hi, Lois.
Hello, Superman.
How are you?
I'm fine. Oh, Superman, this is Lacey Warfield. She's the boss's daughter.
How do you do? It's a very attractive outfit you're wearing.
So the way they did the double date scene, I thought was really great to watch. I mean, it is a bit slapstick, but again, it really highlights the difference in the way he portrays the two characters and how much fun. He really has a lot of fun with Clark. So I think that was wonderful to see.
I don't know how to tell you this. I just don't think he'd be attracted to somebody like you.
Don't be silly. All men like me. I'm very, very rich.
The next point I wanted to make is about Perry White. In this film, he actually gets to do something. In the other films, he was almost a bystander. He helped to report on. In Superman 1, he was it didn't have much to do. In Superman 2, and in 3 he was largely absent, but in 4 you see a little bit more of Perry and who he is and what he's about. He can't let the grand old dame of the Daily Planet be taken over by somebody who is willing to turn it into a cheap tabloid. So he actually gets to do something. He has more than a few lines, and he has a couple of great scenes in the film. So I enjoyed actually doing something with Perry's character.
If you think I'm going to let you turn this grand old lady into one of your bimbos...
Mr. White.
The other element of that is the publishing industry, with Warfield taking over the Planet and turning into a sleazy tabloid full of sensationalism, not reporting on the facts or the truth, just trying to stir things up.
Excuse me, Mr. Warfield, but the world isn't really on the brink. Isn't that headline irresponsible?
Maybe, but it'll sell a hell of a lot of newspapers.
It was an indictment back then on the news media and how influenced we are by it, and it still holds true today. In fact, it's worse than ever in these days in terms of how news outlets are trying to sensationalize everything.
Sure, I don't think it's going to be very good news.
Oh, Clark, you always overreact. It won't be that terrible.
Hopefully very terrible, Miss Lane. We can double our circulation with a good international crisis.
Another element is the gym scene. I thought the gym scene was quite funny. It was a nice little touch for Clark to get a little bit of revenge on the sort of 80s and late 80s jock image that was very prevalent in society back then.
Oh, sure. Here. No pain, no gain?
So he's obviously keen and earnest. It was a little bit over the top, I think, the way that he caused a bit of distress to that guy. But again, trying to hark back to the scenes from Superman 2 with the bully in the bar. So I enjoyed that as well. And the final thing I'll say about Superman 4 that I quite liked is the intent for Nuclear Man. It wasn't really executed very well. I think some of the comedy of Nuclear Man being fully clothed when he turns up and
Relax, this ain't gonna cover him.
looking like a bodybuilder from Venice Beach, which I think is what he was, doesn't work that well for the film. But I think for the smaller children that watched it, you know, they were taken by the length of the battle between them, and, you know, Nuclear Man being more than a match for Superman. So the intent of the fight was great. I think the character could have been done much better, but I do appreciate what the filmmakers were trying to do with Nuclear Man.
I'm incredible.
Lex, he's like...
It's beautiful. It's perfect. Welcome home, Nuclear Man. Your father's happy to see you.
He could have been so cool. I mean, they had to fight on the moon. You know, they fought in a nuclear reactor. So, I mean, this could have been such cool stuff for a comic book film, especially for little kids. But clearly, they ran out of effects. I think there were stories that, you know, Reeve had told John Cryer that this film is not going to be great. And even John Cryer himself mentions that they ran out of money towards the end. So it was a real shame that they had to rehash the effects of the flying, and they had to use a lot of model work, and I don't know how Lacey survives in space. Don't even ask me about that one. But having said that, you know, the intent of Nuclear Man I thought was pretty good, and I enjoyed what they were trying to do, at least with that character. So there you have it. Those are my reasons for enjoying Superman 4. To this day, I still think Christopher Reeve's portrayal is by far and away better than anyone else. That's not to say there haven't been some reasonable attempts, but I just don't think they've nailed the character quite as much as Christopher Reeve. And the actor himself, I mean, he got into the character pretty early on. He didn't know too much about Superman when he took the role, but, you know, his biggest takeaway was that Superman is here to help everyone, regardless. So that, I think, really made for a great portrayal. If you agree with me, disagree with me, please, you know, put your comments below if you think there are other things that I've missed about what makes Superman 4 not as bad as you think. You know, please add them along and we can have those discussions. If you like this video, please give me a like and subscribe to the channel. This is the second video I'm doing, and I'm trying to do a few more of these in some of the old 80s and 90s films, specifically around the comic book genre. So hope you enjoyed it. Have a good day, and thanks for watching.